Hey everyone, hi. So it's our third day of reading for 91 days. We have 91 days challenge. So it's our third day, and I'm gonna start this third day with same book, Mindsight. So let's start. But before reading a book, I want to say something. Today I came live very late. Like it's now 10 or 23 o'clock am. So I'll try to do live early in the morning, before 9 o'clock, so that we can wrap up these within 2 hours. Like as we have our goal to read every day for 2 hours, but because of some circumstances or because of some situations, I won't be able to read more than 12 o'clock because I have to do some other works after that. But today it's Saturday, so I'll try to read as long as 2 hours. So let's see how it works. So I saw yesterday's videos of my live. As we know that not only I'm reading, this challenge is not only reading but to grow ourselves. So there were so many things that I noticed in myself. Related to that, I'm going to make a video. In that I'm going to explain the things. I will take notes and all those things in front of you. I'll try to do as much as possible so that I can be better every day, like my movement, my body language, the way of talking in front of you. There are lots of things that I have to improve in a live stream as well, because it's not like that I should only be here in live stream or in videos. It's like you have to grow yourself in your life, so you have to improve all over the places. It is just not like that you have to just improve yourself in the video. It's not like that, because it's more related to growing oneself, as I told earlier. So I have saw some of points in me that I am going to improve. It is just why I'm telling this, because if you are gonna see myself improving myself like this, then definitely somewhere it will affect you in your brain. It happens, our brain works like that. If you are watching it, then definitely it will work like that. So that is my quite a introduction for today's video, what we are gonna do in this. I'll try to read as much as possible, in a good manner, good way. Yesterday I saw there were some of the words that I was not reading correctly. It was like I was missing some of them. It was not quite good. I was hesitating a lot, but let's see today what happens, how it goes. But it's all about growing every day, 1%, 2%, whatever it takes. But I am growing, and if you are watching it, then and if you are following it, then definitely you are also growing. So let's see how it goes. But before that, that is eventually goal to improve ourselves. But before that, let's start reading what is in today's lesson or what is in today's chapter. Let's see. I'll try to grab as much as possible, because yesterday I was kind of hesitant, nervous. So my focus was not completely on reading. I was reading, but I was not completely getting that. I was thinking something else in my brain, that I'm gonna do that. It happens, but as you become comfortable, then definitely after a certain period of time, you'll be able to get it very easily. You'll be able to focus, you'll be able to concentrate, because your energy, your consciousness completely will be focused on that particular thing. Because let's say if you don't have anything in your mind, if you are not caring about something, caring in the sense, yesterday I was caring about how I am reading, what people are gonna think about me. There are lots of things that I was thinking about it, and just because of that, my energy, the active energy, was going toward that thinking. But eventually, once I comfortable in talk in comfortable to talk to people, talk to YouTube, talk to you, then definitely my energy will be completely here. So let's start our reading now. I'm still having cough and cold, so sorry for that. When the mind works well, when when the mind works well, When our brain functions as an integrated whole, our relationships thrive. Let me check one more thing, my live, if it is correct or not, so that like I should be able to like see it. Yeah, it's live. And one more place I would like to see it. Safari. Because I want to make sure that everything should go fine. Like it will not be fine, but at least I should take care of it. That it should be kind of good. Let me switch my account. Let me go to my usual account that I use every day. After that, I'll go to my channel. One weaving. Okay, how is it possible? If let me check who is weaving it. But I can't see. No one is looking at it. I don't know what it's showing. One view. Live. Transformation. Okay, 12 hours ago. I thought that it's my like today's video, but I'll check these. I don't know what it. Oh, it's going live. That's amazing. One watching. Okay, that's perfect. It's live now. But no one watching, so it's okay. But let's start reading. Okay. When the mind works well, when our brain functions as an integrated whole, our relationship thrive. But sometimes sometimes we lose our minds and act in a ways we do not choose. The story I'll share with you in this chapter was a lesson in impaired mindsight and a remind that and a reminder that no matter how hard sorry I'll do something about it. Next time I won't be able to do the same thing because some people don't like it, and actually I also don't like it. It's kind of very not bad, but it's my habit. Like it's been since childhood because I'm having allergy, like cold allergy. If let's say if I get some dust, or if I'm in cold, or if I'm in like air in the sense if I'm traveling and I don't have anything on my face, then I get this thing very easily. So it's kind of allergy for me. So sorry for that. Just be here for a while. It's like part of my life, so I can't immediately take it off. I can take it off, but it's allergy, so I need to like treat it. Then only it will be like cured. So let's start now. Where I was. And a reminder that no matter how hard you try, you are only human, and your mind will remain full of vulnerabilities and rough spots. It was a warm spring day, and I walked with my 9-year-old daughter on an open pedestrian let me check its pronunciation first of all. Then after that we are going to check its meaning. What does it mean? Uh,
Promenade.
promenade. See how easy was it? Promenade. I'll check it one more time. Promenade. Translate. Select the language.
Promenade. Promenade.
Promenade. Then after that again you can click on it, look for its meaning. Then about public walk, typically one along a waterfront at a resort. Paved as well. Friends and promenade. It's just kind of walking. Pedestrian promenade. To find her brother. Nancy and I had just seen a delightfully funny film, and she was skipping along the sidewalk as we looked around the busy street. My lanky 13-year-old son, 13, my lanky 13-year-old son had gone with some of his classmates to another theater, but now he spotted us, waved, and left his friends to join us. On the back On the way back to the car, we passed a crepe shop, and he asked if we could shop. We had time before we had to go. We had to get home, and so we stepped into the small shop for a snack. My son ordered a small crepe for himself, but my daughter said she wasn't hungry. The crepe, I need to check its pronunciation because I'm not getting it very easily.
Crepe.
Crepe. Oh, actually, I was reading it correctly. What does it mean, crepe? A light, thin fabric with a wrinkled surface. Oh, crepe roller. Wrinkle. A thin pancake. Okay, it's a pancake. The crepe arrived, aromas wafting from the open kitchen behind the counter where my son had placed his order. We sat down and he took. We sat down and he took his first forkful. Then my daughter asked if she could try some. My son looked at the small crepe and said that he was hungry and she could order her own. Reasonable suggestion, I thought. So I offered to get another crepe for her, but she said she only wanted a small bite to see how it tested. That also seemed reasonable. So I suggested that my son share a piece maybe with his sister. One more thing, I'll try to read in continuous. Like sometimes in my reading there is a voice. So I noticed that I'll try to concentrate on that, and I will try my best so that I can't get a voice. It happens because sometime, like let's say if some new word came and I'm not very familiar with that and I'm not able to pronounce that, so to get that word in my brain, before like this before, like my brain wanted to have some time to process that word or sentence, anything, even if I'm talking at the time also. You see, like there are lots of times I have a voice or like words, so these are all the words which my brain is trying to get some time to process the words or process the sentence, next sentence, what I should say. So it is just like that. So I'll try to improve this. And how I'm going to improve? First of all, I'll try to not to make this, but if I'm still making it, then I'll take note of it and will figure something out, that how can I not do this kind of or like, or will try to improve myself as much as possible with the help of notes as well as by noticing myself. That is why I started live streaming, which will help me as well as you, because if you are gonna read, then definitely you will get some motivation, or you'll start doing something, or you'll be, at least you'll be reading with me. That is how, like you'll start working. So that's the only thing. If you have, oh, see, as there is something in word, like I notice it, but I'll try to not make it. If you have more than one child, so like let's say if I'm not getting something in next, then I'll pause, and we'll figure it out, that what I have to say. Same thing I'll do in my talks when I'm talking with you. If I'm not getting next sentences, I'll pause there for a while. It's a good thing to take pauses. It's a very good thing, but our brain thinks that it's not good, so that is why it is just making some sounds. Like there are lots of things that it makes in order to fill the gap, to make another person feel like we are talking, but it's not like that. We have genetically or surroundings, like with just because of surroundings, we took these to do some kind of this. Our brain automatically changes its kind of, it helps itself, so it's its own ways to do the things, but it exactly don't know what is the thing and what don't, because whatever we are going to provide our brain in the sense, like we are conscious, like right now I'm consciously talking to you, but there is subconscious mind, which acts see which acts very randomly, not randomly, with its automatic way, like whatever he has learned past experience, the same way it is going to behave. So that is why right now while reading or while talking, in my talks, in my readings, there are some kind of filling gaps like or like there are lots of times I'm going to say just to fill the gap that you don't seem to like think about me that oh I don't know how to read or I don't know how to talk. So it is the way of our brain. So if I try to focus on these, then definitely after certain period of time, my way of talking, my way of reading, it will improve a lot. Like as you can see right now as well, there is like I'm really talking consciously. I'm thinking a lot, not thinking, but I'm focusing on my talks. If I'm getting that voice or like voice, so it is just like I have to effortfully try to say the correct things, not to fill those gaps. I have to tell my brain that see, I'm talking, but if you are not getting something while talking, you don't have to fill your gaps like oh, you can take a pauses. In that pauses, you can think of the thing or you can get next sentence that you want to say. Then after that, you can proceed and say whatever you want to convey to YouTube audience or your people. That's how it works. So that's it, whatever I like felt I said. So I just thought that it's always better if I'm reading and I felt something, then I should share that thoughts, because yesterday this happened with me. While reading I was getting so many thoughts which was I was thinking that was useful, but in between that I was thinking that if I'm going to say in the middle of reading, then like it's kind of disturbance. So I thought that let's write it down after completing our live streaming. After that I'm going to make a video and we'll explain those all points. But after ending my live streaming, I didn't get anything. I was not aware of my thoughts that I was getting while streaming. So that is why I'm explaining the thing right now. So thank you if you are still watching, because sometimes it's very difficult to watch someone who is just explaining the things, and if you are not getting those things, and especially if the person is new and he really don't know how to explain, how to make another people understand, how to make them think that I am speaking very good way. So it's very difficult to stay to listen a person who is very new or who is just trying to explain the thing, who is just trying to do the thing, who is just new to everything. So thank you to bear me, thank you to watch me. Concurrent viewers, chat views. I can see there is one person that watching. It's me or who? It's not me, I guess. I saw that. There's one concurrent watcher, concurrent viewers. I have very much problem of it. If someone is watching, please do comment or do chat so that I'll be able to see who is this person or whoever it is. So I can even like take the things from these like views, one average view duration. Oh, I guess it was only me views. That's the thing. Concurrent views, London views. It's kind of concurrent views. Chart rate. Okay, I got it now. Okay, whoever is watching, please do comment or it's okay. Let me start reading again. If you have more than one child at home, or if you have grown up with a brother or sisters, you may be very familiar with the game of sibling chess, strategic interaction, filled with ever-present sets of movements and to assert power and achieve parental recognition and approval. But even if this were not such a sibling assertion game, the small cost of buying a second crib would have been quite a simple one to pay to avoid what you might guess was about to happen. Instead of making the purchase, I made a parental blunder and took sides. I firmly asserted that my son shared his crib with his sister. If this was not sibling chase before, it certainly became that after I stepped into their interaction. Why don't you just give her a small piece so she can see how it tastes? I urged. He looked at me and his grape, and then with a sigh he gave in. Even as a young teenager, he was still listening to me. Then, using his knife like a scalpel, let me check the meaning of scalpel. First of all, I'll check its pronunciation.
Scalpel. Scalpel.
Scalpel.
Scalpel.
Scalpel. Okay. Then, using his knife like a scalpel, I'll check its meaning now. A knife with a small, sharp, sometimes detachable blade. Okay, it's a kind of knife only. Then, using his knife like a scalpel, he extracted the smallest piece of crepe you can imagine. One you would almost need tweezers to pick up. Under other circumstances, I might have laughed and seen this as a creative sibling chase move. My daughter took the specimen, placed it on her napkin, and said that it was too small. Another great move. Yeah, in just a bit of time, he responded, without looking up from his plate, and that see, again I made something in between, so it's kind of thing that is happening while reading. So it's completely being improved after a certain period of time. You'll also get notice because I'm actively focusing on my reading right now, because as I'm doing live as well as reading, so my concentration is completely to make myself correct as much as possible so that I don't feel like shame on myself. Like sometimes it happens, like we are having very social anxiety. We don't want to show ourselves very weak or kind of like that. I don't get the exact word for that, but it's like that, full force, and I couldn't see it. Although I knew that the teens and their younger siblings don't get along all the time, that they frequently engage in creative and varied chess matches in subtle or not so subtle ways. Their interaction was getting to me. Now I was beginning to boil. Can you give her a real piece? One that you can actually see? He decided another. Hey, see, again decided. Like, I'm getting some of the other words. Why I'm noticing it? Because yesterday I was watching, not today, I was watching yesterday's live streaming, and in that live streaming, there were some of the words that I was completely mispronouncing. Like its meaning completely changed. So it's not good. So that is why I'm focusing on it more. He excised. Let me check. It's like excised.
Excised.
Excised. He excised another larger piece and felt relieved. Then my daughter complained that this was the burnt part, and sure enough, he had cut off that burnt corner of the crepe that crumbles tasteless in your mouth. Chase moves well executed. Chase moves well executed. An outsider looking in at us at the table might have seen nothing out of the ordinary. A dad and his two animated kids out now for some food, but inside I was about to explode. When the bantering continued, something inside of me shifted. My head began to spin, but I told myself that I would remain calm and appeal to reason. I could feel my face tense up, my fists get taut, and my heart began to beat faster. But I tried to ignore these signals. That was it for me. Feeling overwhelmed by the ridiculousness of the whole encounter, I got up, took my daughter's hand, and went outside to wait on the sidewalk in front of the shop until my son finished his crepe. A few minutes later, he emerged and asked why we had left. As I stormed off toward the car, my daughter in tow, and my son hurrying to keep up, I told them that they should learn to share their food with each other. He pointed out in a matter of fact tone that he did give her a piece, but by then I was boiling over with frustration, and at that point there was no turning off the heat under the kettle. We got to the car and fired up. I ignited the engine, and away we went toward home. There had been normal siblings out for movies and a snack. I became a father out of mind. I couldn't let it go. Sitting next to me in the passenger seat, my son just countered everything I came up with by some rational, measured response as any teenager would do. In fact, he seemed quite adept at staying calm as he dealt with his now irrational father. In that state, I just became more irate and gave him inappropriate consequences for things he didn't even do. When we lose our mind, I am not proud to tell you any of these, but I do feel that since such explosive episodes are quite common, it is essential that we acknowledge their existence and help one another understand how mindsight can diminish their negative impact on our relationship and on our world. In our shame, we often try to ignore that a meltdown has occurred. But if we own the truth of what has happened, not only can we begin to repair the damage, which can be quite toxic to ourselves as well as to others, we can also actually decrease the density of such events and the frequency with which they occur. Let's look at my meltdown again. Meltdown in the sense it's kind of crying. I saw one of my colleague told in the sense she was mentioning these words in her sentence. So at the time I saw the meaning of it and I remember right now. So what I'm trying to say that even if you are looking at once only at some words, some in future someday you'll remember that you had seen its meaning or something, and it will make your neuron for that particular word stronger, and you don't have to remember it or you don't have to look again and again after a certain period of time. I'm not proud to tell you any of these. Oh, I forgot where I was reading. When we lose our mind, I am proud. I read it. Existence help one another understand. Thing. But if we, I was looking meltdown. Okay, sorry for that. A disastrous event, especially a rapid fall in share prices, an outburst of several emotion distress, a nervous breakdown. It's kind of like they are thinking a lot, something like that. Let's look at meltdown again in terms of how my mind was riding the waves of my misfiring brain. A likely explanation is that I experienced a temporary brain dysfunction similar to what I described in chapter first. When discussing the sudden irrational emotional eruption that Barbara experienced the following her accident. In that kind of dysfunction, under certain crepe-like conditions, the limbic lava from the fiery emotional center below the cortex, just beneath the middle prefrontal area, can explode in out of control activity. All sorts of factors can contribute to such a meltdown, including lack of sleep and hunger, which were both true in my case on that day, and the particular meaning of an event, as we'll soon discover. The middle prefrontal cortex, the region that calms the emotionally reactive lower limbic and brain stimulus, stops being able to regulate all the energy being steered. What does it mean by steered? I guess it's kind of still means getting mixed up. Let's see its meaning. Move a spoon or implement around in. That's kind of similar. Energy being steered up and the coordination and balance of the brain is disrupted. That's my understanding of what happens when we go down the low road, now moving directly from a limbic impulse to speech and action, and detouring away from the prefrontal high road, where we are flexible and receptive rather than inflexible and reactive. We flip our leads without the prefrontal cortex capacity to create a U map. I was unable to see my sons and daughters' behavior as siblings chess moves in an evolving sequence of beats for recognition and power. Nothing out of the ordinary. If you see the mind behind the behavior without me maps, I could not see the meaning of the interaction for my own symbol making mind. Echoes of a past, as will soon discover, and without the VMAPs, I could not see the inappropriate prefrontal Sorry, like again I read here something else. So it happens if we are going in a hurry. So that is the thing. But I'll make it as much as possible. I can read inappropriate parental response of intervening with a teen and preteen negotiating their own sibling relationship. Let me check its meaning. First of all, I'll check its pronunciation. English pronunciation.
Preteen.
Preteen. Teen and preteen, and negotiating their own siblings' relationship. This intervention actually intensified the banter into an argument, propelled forward by my own emotional reaction. I became an inadvertent participant in their perhaps unintentional game of sibling chess. We checked its preteen negotiation, but I need to check its meaning as well. Preteen, what does it mean by preteen? Relating to the child just under the age of 13. Okay, preteen negotiating, negotiating their own sibling relationship. This intervention actually intensified the banter into an argument, propelled forward by my own emotional reactions. I became an advertent participant in their perhaps unintentional game of sibling chess. The mechanism of mindlessness. Let me briefly map my meltdown against the 9 prefrontal functions that I introduced in chapter 1st. To summarize, they are bodily regulation, attuned communication, emotional balance, response flexibility, fear modulation, empathy, insight, moral awareness, and intuitions. Not intuitions, but intuition. These nine would top many researchers and therapists list of the elements of emotional well-being. This is also a list of what I lost when I lost my mind. Bodily regulation. The middle prefrontal region coordinates the activity of a part of the nervous system that controls bodily functions such as heart rate, respiration, and digestion. This automatic nervous system has two branches. The sympathetic, which is often compared with a car's accelerator, and the parasympathetic. Here also in between that I made the voice ah, parasympathetic, because I was trying to read this in my mind. My mind was trying to figure this sentence, not a sentence, the word. So that is why here in between this after like, and the like that I get it, because my brain is trying to like figure out these words pronunciation. So it took a pause here, not a pause actually, it is just filling the gap. So instead of filling the gap, I would prefer to like have a pause here, like, and the parasympathetic, like that. Parasympathetic, the brakes, balancing the two allows us to drive the car of the body smoothly. And so what we lift off the brakes when we press the accelerator, and vice versa. Without such coordination, we can burn out, revving up. Let me check its meaning again, or not a meaning. First of all, I'll check its pronunciation.
Revving.
Revving, and the meaning I guess accelerating. Revolution of an engine per minute. That is the thing. An act of increasing the speed of the acceleration. We can say it like in short. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comment or chat. Jungkook, can you read slow? You are too fast. Okay, I'll try to read it slow, so that you can also get it. But like I've been reading for a long time, so just because of that, my way of talking or way of reading, it's kind of fast. Like I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll try to make it as so that everybody can understand it. So where I was revving up while trying to slow down. During my meltdown, my heart was beating out of control and my intestines were churning. just as if I'd been facing a physical threat. Attuned communication. When we attune to others, we allow our own internal state to shift. So here, what was happened? Let me tell you. This sentence. I guess this sentence was not very familiar to me, and just because of that, it made me to like read like somewhere in between. Like I did that. So what I'm trying to say here is that like whenever I'm trying to fill the gap with filler words, then it's kind of thing that my brain is trying to figuring out the sentence completely or the words. That is how it is working. So in order to tell my brain that see, you don't have to fill the gaps, you can take a stop, you can take the pause, and then you can read it, you can figure out by in your mind, and you can read it very goodly. Like yeah, it will feel good as well as you'll try to understand it. No need to fill the gaps. Communication. Now, when we attune to others, we allow our own internal state to shift. Now, I read it very goodly. To come to resonate with the inner word of another. Now, this resonance is at the heart of the important sense of feeling felt that emerges in a close relationship. Children need attunement to feel secure and to develop well, and throughout our lives, we need attunement to feel close and connected. When I went down to the low road, I could no longer attune to my children. I was unable to align my own state with theirs. Emotional balance. Now, when we are in emotional balance, we feel alive and at ease. Our feelings are aroused enough for life to have meaning and vitality, but not so aroused that we feel overwhelmed or out of control. Lacking balance, we move toward either excessive arousal, a state of chaos, or too little arousal, a state of rigidity or depression. Either extreme drains us of vitality. In the face of life's challenges, even the healthiest person may be temporarily thrown off and feel out of balance. But the middle prefrontal region functions to bring us back to equilibrium. This is the brain basis of equanimity. Let me check its pronunciation.
Equanimity.
Equanimity. See how easy was it? Equanimity.
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 Equanimity. That means this like patience. Let's check its meaning. Mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper. It's a kind of coolness. This is the brain basis of equanimity. Equanimity. The ability to stay clear and focused in the face of storms, from both inside and outside of us. I lost my equanimity somewhere between the third and fourth round of bantering about sharing the prep. The author, see, I'll try to like make it very low. As long as I'm going to notice these filler words, definitely after a certain period of time, I will not make it. You'll notice it if you are regularly watching it. I lost my equanimity somewhere between the third and fourth round of bantering about sharing the crib. Here, I really take a pause because I wanted to read it as a whole and my brain was trying to figure it out. So, just because of that, I read it like round of bantering about sharing the crib. I took a quite little pause here so that I can read it very well. So here it is just trying to explain its past experience, the author's past experience with his students, his daughter and son. Response flexibility harnesses the power of the middle prefrontal region to put a temporal space between input and action. This ability to pause before responding is an important part of emotional and social intelligence. It enables us to become fully aware of what is happening and to restrain our impulses long enough to consider various options for response. We work hard to model and to teach this to our children, and we can continue to strengthen this ability throughout the lifespan. Early in the crib episode, I felt fine, but then I became aware that something had changed inside of me. and relatively rapidly. A state of chaotic agitation arose and made me flexible. Trapped by my rising anger, I became unable to pause before speaking or acting. Fear modulation. After experiencing a frightening event, we may come to feel fear in the face of a similar situation, but the middle prefrontal region has direct connection that pass down into the limbic area and make it possible to inhibit and modulate the firing of the fear creating amygdala. Studies have demonstrated that we can consciously harness this connection to overcome fear. Now we can use the override of our cortex to calm our lower limbic agitation. See, legitation. Because somewhere in my mind I'm thinking something. That is why I was not able to like concentrate on it. It happens whenever you are not focusing or you are not concentrating on it very actively at the time, like you won't be able to like your brain will go on autopilot. It will read whatever it fell or whatever it is going to like think of on autopilot mode. Limbic agitation. After we had discussed the role of the brain in her treatment, one of my young patients announced, I am trying to get my prefrontal cortex to squirt GABA, 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 goo, over my amygdala, GABA or gamma. It's a very long word. Gamma aminobutyric. Gamma aminobutyric. Let me check. It's a, I guess, whole complete word that I need to check. First of all, I'll check its pronunciation. Then I'll check its meaning. Gamma aminobutyric.
Gamma aminobutyric. Gamma aminobutyric.
Gamma aminobutyric. Aminobutyric. Or gamma aminobutyric acid is a neurotransmitter that plays an important role in the prefrontal inhibition of subcortical firing, and she had imagined it as a kind of gel to soothe the limbic eruptions. As I realized later, my irritation and ensuing anger were indeed driven by an old fear. One had worked hard to understand and master. More about that when I take up the story again. So here it is just trying to explain like as already like when his son wanted to have crepe, wanted to eat that in shop, then they went to the shop, and at the time I'm still getting the filler words, so sorry for that, but I'm concentrating on that so that I can not make those words again and again. So what I'm trying to say here, the author, when his son was hungry at the time, like they were going toward his home, their home, from theater to home, and at the time his son was feeling hungry, so they went to the shop, and in the shop he brought pancake, the crepe, and ordered it. And when son was starting eating it, at the time her daughter wanted to taste it, so in that they started fighting, like kind of fight was there, and just because of that fight, the author or the father get like he got what I can say, he got frustrated, and just because of that frustration, he started like going in autopilot, like he started to being angry on his children. So he's just trying to explain here that whatever happened, it was just because of his fear. What fear? Not the fear was not exact time, but the fear was somewhere in his past experience, and that same neuron, in my term I can say the neuron, got fired, and he started acting like on autopilot. So just because of that it is happening. More about that when I take up the story again. But all those gains were now temporarily suspended. So I was here. As I realized later, my irritation and ensuing anger were ended by an old fear, one I had worked hard to understand the master. More about that I take up the story again. But all those gains were now temporarily suspended, and Gabbard Goo was not at my command, dried up by the heat of my rage. Actually, right now, what is happening? Why I'm stucking? Like I don't know if I'm stucking here or not, but Ram Pavan Ram. Actually, like here the thing is that this channel is completely to grow oneself as well as to learn English and all those things. Just because of that I'm trying to speak in English. Like I would have talked in Hindi, but I have to like force myself here to speak in English only because I really wanted to have like my self improvement and all those things in English itself. So that is why I'm like talking here. रामपोन राव राम हिंदी हिंदी में प्लीज मुझे इंग्लिश नहीं आती. Okay, but you can try it out, you can try to learn it, you can like listen. Okay, that's really cool. If you want to learn English, then definitely you are gonna get it. Like, sorry to say in English, but I have to do it in English. But like, if you want something, you can like, I'll try to figure out how can I make these things for the audience who really wanted to like learn English. But you can listen it. You can concentrate on the words. You can see how I am reading. Then at least you will be able to like listen it, like how our brain works. Basically, if you are listening it again and again, then our brain automatically get it. So after certain period of time, if you are following the sentences, if you are following the words, then definitely you will be able to speak, you will be able to like talk something like that. So you have to try on it. So sorry to say again that I have to read it in English, I have to say in English because it's completely for English only. Like I have decided to have it in English only, so sorry again for that. Right up by the heart of my edge. Again, one more thing that I wanted to say that my sister came to say something. She was like yelling at me, not yelling actually, she was calling me. So might be you would have heard her voice saying something like my name or something like that. So sorry for this disturbance. As well as it is live, I can't like cut those things and show only that particular things. Empathy is the capacity to create mindsight images of the other people's mind. These maps enable us to sense the internal mental stance of another person. One more thing, I'm not expert in English and all those things. I'm just trying to improve myself. That is why this is channel. Like I'm not teaching anyone, I'm just improving myself and giving motivation, kind of motivation. Some people gonna take the motivation, some people don't. Like it's up to personal choice, everyone's personal choice, everyone's personal feelings. I'm just trying to improve myself as well as somehow I am contributing to like people's growth somehow. Like I don't know if I'm gonna be for particular person or not, but definitely if they are gonna follow the things, like even if they are gonna read, so then definitely they'll grow somewhere, because by reading we grow. So that is how it works. Empathy is the capacity to create mindset images of other people's mind. These young maps enable us to sense the internal mental stance of another person, not just attune to their state of mind. Attunement is important, but the middle prefrontal cortex also moves us from this resonance and feeling with to a more complex perceptual capacity to see from another's point of view. We sense the other's intention and imagine what an event means in his or her mind. Insight allow us to make meme maps, enabling us to pursue our own mind. Now, this creates that one researcher calls mental time travel, in which we connect the past to the present and the anticipated future. The middle prefrontal region No, what is time? Let me check time. Okay, it's 1 hour almost. Vision plays a crucial role in this mental time travel, permitting us to experience ourselves as the center of subjective gravity and subjective gravity, the author of our own unfolding life story. Both empathy and insight were casualties of my meltdown. I lost insight into my own mind, and I could not put myself in the place of either my son or my daughter, or even pause to wonder what they were, what they might be thinking and feeling. Without these maps, as we have seen, I could not have perspective on the minds beneath the behavior. Moral awareness, as I'm using it here, denotes the ways in which we both think about and enact behaviors for the social good, and we have evidence that it requires an intact middle prefrontal region, functional magnetic resonance. Imagining scanner have shown that a region becomes highly active when we imagine actions for the larger social good. Other research has shown that when the middle prefrontal region is damaged, we may become amoral. Moral reasoning moral reasoning seems to require the integrative capacity of this region of the brain, both to sense the emotional meaning of present challenges and to override immediate impulses in order to create moral action in response to those challenges. Now, this may be how the V maps created by the middle prefrontal cortex enables us to move beyond our immediate, individually focused survival needs and even beyond the present version of our relationship maps to a vision of a larger interconnected whole. Okay, I'll try to read slowly. From a moral perspective, my meltdown included unfairly focusing on my son and imposing unreasonable, even ridiculous consequences that had nothing to do with the larger good. Now, for all concerned, I was driven by my own personal feelings and reactivity, not a sense of what was right or fair. Now, finally, intuition again be seen as how the middle prefrontal cortex gives us access to the wisdom of the body. This reason receives information from throughout the interior of the body, including the viscera, such as our heart and our intestines, and uses this input to give us a heartfelt sense of what to do or a gut feeling about the right choice. Now, this integrative function eliminates how reasoning once thought to be a purely logical mode of thinking is in fact dependent the on the non-rational processing of our bodies. Now, such intuition helps us make wise decisions, not just logical ones. But now, with my limbic ball of fire burning, I had no access to intuition or to the wisdom of my body and to deeper sense of knowing what was true, now what was really happening. Paradoxically, however, I might have said that I felt justified in what I was doing, that in my gut it felt right. Now, those statements would have been rationalization which are driven by my increasing irritation and consistent with my rising anger and agitated voice. Though all of this is embarrassing to relate, I offer it as evidence that we are all potentially prone to such low-roading disintegrations. Okay, okay. Though all of this is embarrassing to relate, I offer it as evidence that we are all potentially prone to such low road disintegrations. The key is recognizing when they happen, putting an end to them as quickly as possible to minimize the hurt they cause, and then making a repair. We need to regain what was truly lost, mindsight, and then use mindsight to reconnect with ourselves and with those for whom we care so deeply. On the day of crepes, I was still irritated with my son when we entered the house. I walked into another room away from my son, took a deep breath, stretched, and tried to calm down. I knew repair was crucial, but my vital signs were through the roof, and I had to bring them into balance before I could do anything else. I knew that being outside and doing something physical would help. So I went with my daughter for roller skating, break around the neighborhood, no one for our favorite activities together. Even since she was 6 year old, we skated for a while in silence, hand in hand. I could sense the rhythm of our moving together and feel the air against my body as we glided down the street. I was literally starting to come to my sense. After a while, my daughter asked me why I had yelled at her brother just about to creep. A good question. I told her I thought sharing was important. Lame excuse. I know, but that's what I thought at the time. At that moment, I felt a flow of association rise up in my mind, like the pages of a photo album from my childhood. The picture flashing by in front of my eyes. I came to realize that what happened is that I saw my daughter as a symbol of myself when I was a child, my son as a symbol of my older brother when he was a teen. I had images of my brother playing with me when we were young and even protecting me from other kids when we both were in elementary school. But when he became a teenager, we no longer got along so well and rarely shared time together. Even even though he and I are close as adults and we laugh about those days now. Back then, it was a painful time for me. I told my daughter as we skated along that I had decided that if I ever had kids, I would try to make sure they got along. Then, most insightfully, my daughter offered that this was my issue, not hers or her brother's. And she even said that I should figure it out on my time, not through them. And she was right, of course. As we skated together, my mind now calm and my prefrontal region back online. I could begin to reflect on what had been going on. I now could look within myself at the emotions that had erupted, and I could see the issues that had contributed to my meltdown. What had happened during my roller skating break that allowed me to regain mindsight. The tripod of reflection, openness, observation, objectivity. To regain control of the mind after we have lost it, we need the power of reflection that is at the heart of mindsight. Mindsight emerges as our communication with others and with ourselves. Help us reflect on who we really are and what is going on inside us. Here I'll explore three very specific components of reflection that are at the heart of our mindsight abilities: openness, observation, and objectivity. I like to think of these fundamental components as the three legs of a tripod that stabilizes. Let me check its meaning. Not meaning actually.
Stabilizes.
Stabilizes our mindset lens. Without the tripod, our mind may be visible to us only as blurry, busy hive of activity whose fine details are lost in jumping images and fleeting feelings. But when the lens of our mind sight camera is established, the details come into focus. We see with more depth and precision. From this stabilization, we gain all the gifts of acuity. Keenness, insight, perception, and ultimately wisdom. Openness implies that we are receptive to whatever comes to our awareness and don't cling to preconceived ideas about how things should be. We let go of expectations and receive things as they are rather than trying to make them how we want them to be. Openness enables us to sense things clearly. It gives us the power to recognize restrictive judgments and release our mind from their grip. Observation is the ability to pursue the self even as we are experiencing an event. It places us in a larger frame of reference and broadens our perspective moment to moment. Put another way, self observation allow, allows us to see the fuller context in which we are living. Observation offers a powerful way to disengage from automatic behaviors and habitual responses. We can sense our role in these patterns and begin to find ways to alter them. Objectivity permits us to have a thought or feeling and not become swept away by it recruits the ability of the mind to be aware that its present activities, our thoughts, feelings, memories, beliefs, and intentions are temporary, and moreover, that they are not the totality of who we are. They are not our identity. Objectivity allow us to develop what is sometimes called discernment. Now, with discernment, we can see that a thought or feeling is just mental activity, not absolute reality. Later in the book, we'll explore this ability in more detail. But here, let me just mention that one part of discernment is the ability to be aware of how we are being aware, as opposed to becoming lost in the target of our attention. This meta awareness or awareness of awareness is a powerful skill that can liberate us from the prison of automatic reactions. So the essence of reflection, which is central to mindsight, is that we remain open, observant, and objective about what's going on both inside us and inside others. Without any one of these three triplex, mindsight becomes unsteady, and our ability to clearly see the mind of ourselves or of others becomes compromised. When I lost control over the crepes, I was being reactive rather than receptive. I had remained open and reflective. I might have been able to make our interaction a time of learning for all of us. Instead, I was carried away by the intensity of my emotions. My feelings overwhelmed my awareness. A subcortical storm disabled prefrontal integration, and my behavioral impulses went on autopilot. Let's look at another more neutral example. Listening to a piece of music. Naturally, there are times when we just listen to music, get lost in it, and enter the flow of the melody. We are immersed, self consciousness disappears, and the boundaries between ourselves and the focus of our attention, the music, melt away. Flow can be fabulous, but sometimes we absolutely need reflection and not flow. In many ways, I was in the flow of my wrath at my son. I lost self consciousness and became one with the fury. That is not a good thing, obviously, and so it's important to distinguish the reflection inherent to mindsight from the experience of flow. Reflection Reflection is crucial to pulling oneself out of groove of crepes of wrath experience, and also later on to making a repair. If we try to reconnect without reflection, if we simply visit now what happened, we can actually evoke the same reactive flow and fall back into the meltdown experience all over again. But with reflection, we can observe ourselves with openness and objectivity. We can sense the flood of out of control emotions as a mere part of the story of who we are. Now we gain the crucial capacity to deal with an intense emotion without becoming lost in it. Now this can make all the difference between explosion and expression. No question. Now, when we are in meltdown, it's hard to recruit. No question, when we are in meltdown, it's hard to recruit our reflective skill. No, but once we leave that disconnected, explosive state, a reflection also helps us to look back and look inward at what has happened. If we recognize that this mental event was not the totally of who we are, now we gain the reflective distance and the freedom to take responsibility for our actions and feelings. Now we can look at our autopilot behavior and come to a deep understanding that may permit us to behave differently in the future. Okay, I'll try to read, but it will be only in English. So what? But first of all, I have like committed myself to read only brain-related books. After that, I'll start reading like whatever comes in the way. So I'm gonna read that. After the crepes episodes, my daughter and I reconnected in our After the Crepes episodes, my daughter and I reconnected in our skating and talking together. I apologized to her for having gotten to upset. Now, what I needed to do was to reconnect with my son. Now, when we are filled with out of control anger, we can't expect other to emphatically say, "Oh, tell me more about how furious you are." Anger creates anger, and a cooling off is essential before a repair process can be initiated. Even a short break can make all the difference. And then, if you value your relationship, it is crucial to take the initiative and make an effort to reconnect. This is especially true for parents. We parents are supposed to be the wiser, kinder, more mature persons, and even as we acknowledge that this is not always the case, it is at least a goal we can aim for. On other hand, not beating up on ourselves is crucial to overcoming the shame and guilt we may feel after taking momentary leave of our sanity. Being kind to ourselves actually helps us to take the necessary steps toward repair and reconnection. It also helps to be prepared for being rebuffed initially, since this often happens when we first try to make a repair. Without such preparation, we may rapidly re-enter the disintegrated state, reinforcing and hardening the disconnections we are trying to undo. Before we reconnect with others, we need to be sure we are connected with ourselves. To reconnect with myself, I need to check in with the essential components of mental life, to reflect on my internal sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. This reflection is like reviewing a checklist before you leave the house. Do you have your wallet, your keys, your calendar, your phone? Focusing on the internal life of the mind is often ignored in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Reviewing. Just give me a minute. Your keys, your calendar, your phone, focusing on the internal life of the mind is often ignored in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Reviewing the Crips episode, now I asked myself, what were the sensation in my body? Now, what images did I have in my mind's eye? What were the feelings, the emotions floating around in my head? Now, what thoughts were occurring then, and now are they still with me? In my meltdown state, I was filled with the sensation of my tense body and pounding hurt, images of my children arguing, feeling of anger and frustrations, thoughts about how my son should be behaving. Now I could reflect on those experiences from a further distance with an openness, observation, and objectivity I had lost at the time. Now I could also now see the deeper issues echoing in my memory that led to led to the meltdown. Again, it would have been easy to beat up on myself. Now, what is wrong with you? Dan, you have written book on the subject. Thought about this for years. Now, why can't you keep your head together? But reflection requires an attunement to the self that is supportive and kind, not a judgmental stance, interrogation and detrogation. Reflection is a compassionate state of mind. In many ways, I realized I had lost those nine middle prefrontal functions. My low road state, like, resulted from the temporary shutting down of my middle prefrontal area. No longer in a state of integration, my brain lost its balance and coordination. The lower limbic brainstem and bodily areas held sway as my usually more reasonable, empathic, and flexible cortex went offline. Cooling down meant beginning to regain integration. Once I had figured out what had been going on during the meltdown, what had triggered the fury and maintained it, I could also reflect on my mind to sense when I was feeling solidly enough on an integrated ground that I could trust myself to be able to have a dialogue with my Nyson. With the prefrontal cortex back in business, empathy had returned, and I now began to focus on how important it was to repair our ruptured connections and what I needed to do to make that possible. When I finally cooled down after talking and skating and reflecting, I went to my son's room and asked if we could talk. I said that I thought I had gone off the deep end and that it would be helpful for us to discuss what had happened. He told me that he thought I was too protective of his sister. He was indeed absolutely right. Although the embarrassment of having become irrational created an urge to speak up to defend myself and my reaction. I just kept quiet. Observation. I could discern that this urge and accompanying sensation were just activities of my kind and not the totality of who I was. Objectivity. I did not have to speak just because the impulse was there. Now, my son went on to tell me that my getting upset was unnecessary because he really hadn't done anything wrong. He was right. Again, I felt a defensive urge to give him a lecture about sharing, but I reminded myself to remain reflective and focus on my son's experience, not mine. The essential stance there was to not just judge who was right and instead be accepting and receptive, be accepting and receptive to him. You can imagine that this all required mindset for sure. I was thankful my prefrontal region was back at work. With my daughter's question, I had already explored what I thought had been going on me. I had come to realize that I had become swept up in my old leftover issues and I could no longer see clearly. Now I could just listen as he continued without needing much guidance to explain his point of view. I later offered to him that during the Krebs encounter, I had in fact taken his sister's side unfairly, that I could see how this felt unjust to him, and that my explosion seemed irrational, because in fact it was as an explanation, not an excuse. I let him know what had happened in my mind, seeing him as a symbol of my brother, so that we both could make sense of the whole encounter, even though I probably looked awkward and clumsy in his teenage mind. I could tell that he knew my commitment of a relationship was deep and my effort to repair damage was genuine. My mindset had returned, our two minds connected again, and our relationship was back on track. The key to reflective dialogue I engaged in with my son was maintaining the three components of openness, observation, and objectivity. Each of these elements enables a powerful source of healing to emerge following a disruption in our relationship, and each of them is an essential part of the kindness we need to extend after such disruption. As I think back on the event of that day, now I realize once again how many layers of meaning our brain brain's content, and how quickly old, perhaps forgotten memories can emerge to shape our behavior. This association can make us act on automatic pilot. At the time of crepes of wrath drama, that theme of feeling disconnected in my childhood was a hot button of leftover emotional issues in my life. Once that this incident made me realize I needed to reflect upon with more depth, with mindsight. I was able to make use of reflections that arose from that conflict to arrive. I add more clarifying insight into my own childhood experience. Now, this is how the most challenging moment in our lives can become opportunities to deepen ourselves, self understanding, and our connection with others. As a wise professor of mine once said, uncovering memory and meaning are never over until life is over. He was so right. Even with intellectual understanding and reflective insights, we are still fallible, still human, still refining our mindset skill. That day of crepes and cries and skits and insights had become part of our family's shared story. The repair process that we had engaged in following the turmoil had led not only to repair but also to deeper understanding for all of us. With mindsight, our standard is honestly and humility, not some false ideal of perfection and individually perfection and invulnerability. We are all human, and seeing a mind clearly helps us embrace that humanity within one another and ourselves. Sometimes it's very difficult to read continuously, like because of most of the time my throat get dried up, as well as I have some of the hesitation, nervousness, because it's my third day on live streaming just because of that. But with process, with continuity, with consistency, after a certain period of time I'll be able to speak very fluently, speak very comfortably. Like there will be lots of things that is going to be improve in myself. So before reading continually, I need to ask something. You can comment or you can say me in tomorrow's stream that if you want me to explain everything whatever I'm reading. But for now, I'll try to explain it very less, because I have to complete at least 5 books on live streaming. After that, I'll try to figure out how I can explain or how I can make it very better so that I can explain it very well so that you can also understand the things. That is how I want to to do my live streaming and all of those things, so that I can make myself better, as well as I can make you understand what I am reading and what does it mean by whatever it is being said. So that's the thing that I want to read or I want to understand, or I want to make you understand as well. So right now it's 11:40. Let's start 20 more minutes or more than that. After that I'll be finishing my live streaming. But I'm thinking of creating one more video. I will record video, I will edit it, I will do something more in that. And for that, I'll be recording myself whatever I'm doing. Like it could be live streaming or it could be a video where I will explain the things how I did all of those, because I'm also new to editing and all. I saw editing videos, but I don't know much editing. But with the process, if I started learning the things, you'll also get to know, because everybody wants to grow but they are not getting a path. Like everybody want to grow, everybody wants to have something in their life, but the thing is that they don't have consistency. They don't have, there are lots of problem they have. So just to break that problems, they make them consistent. I'll do something so that you'll also able to do the same thing. Same thing in the sense, see, first of all, how thing works. It works based on our feelings, completely feelings. If you have feeling for this particular thing, like I am doing live streaming, I have in mind that if I'm not gonna do live streaming, what people are gonna say. Even if people didn't see, but I have uploaded video on YouTube saying that I'm going to do live streaming for every day. So here what I'm trying to say, my brain, that see man, if you are not going to do live streaming every day, then what about your video that you have uploaded at first day saying that you are going to do live streaming? It will make me as false or like lie person in front of lots of people, if I'm not going to do live streaming. So that is why it is just making me to do every day. So it is just kind of cue and reward system that I read in Atomic Habit and the Power of Habit. I'll also read on live streaming after finishing some of the books related to brain. Let me know in the comments or chat. Mm, as a vice professor of mine once said, uncovering memory and meaning are never over until life is over. He was so right. Even even with intellectual understanding and reflective insights, we are still fallible, still human, still refining our mindset skills. That day of crepes and cries and skates and sites had become part of our family's shared story. The repair process that we had engaged in following the turmoil had led not only to repair but also to deeper understanding for all of us. With Mindsight, our standards is honestly and humility, not some false ideal of perception and invulnerability. We are all human, and seeing our minds clearly helps us embrace that humanity within one another and ourselves. Mind, the brain, neuroplasticity in a nutshell. It's easy to get overwhelmed thinking about the brain. With more than 100 billion interconnected neurons suffered into a small skull enclosed space, where I'm going go. With more than 100 billion interconnected neurons stuffed into a small skull's enclosed space, the brain is both dense and intricate, and as if that weren't complicated enough, each of your average neuron has 10,000 connections or synapses linking it to other neurons in the skull portion of the nervous system alone. There are hundreds of trillions of connections linking the various neural grouping into a vast spider web like network. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't live long enough to count each of those synaptic linkage. Given these number of synaptic connections, the brain's the brain's possible on offering of firing patterns. Its potential for various states of activation. Okay, my mouse charging was over. I'll take it on iPad. Given this number of synaptic connections, the brain's possible on off firing patterns, its potential for various states of activation has been calculated to be 10 to the million power or 10 times 10 1 million times. This number is thought to be larger than the number of atoms in the known universe. It also far exceeds our ability to experience in one lifetime even a small percentage of these firing possibilities. As a neuroscientist once said, the brain is the brain is so complicated it staggers its own imagination. The brain's complexity gives us virtually infinite choices now for how our mind will use those firing patterns to create itself. If we get stuck in one pattern or the other, we are limiting our potential. Patterns of neural firing are what we are looking for when we match a brain scanner a light up as a certain task is being performed. Now, what scans often measures is blood flow. Since neural activity increases oxygen use, an increased flow of blood to given area of the brain implies that neurons are firing there. Research studies correlate this inferred neural firing with specific mental functions, such as focusing attention, recalling a past event, or feeling pain. Now we can only imagine how a scan of my brain might have looked when I went down the low road in the Krebs encounter. An abundance of limbic firing with increased blood flow to my irritated amygdala and a diminished flow to my prefrontal areas as they began to shut down. Sometimes has happened that the out the out of control firing of our brain drives what we feel, how we perceive what is happening, and how we respond. Once my prefrontal region was offline, the firing patterns from throughout my subcortical region could dominate my internal experience and my interaction with my kids. But it is also true that when we are not traveling down the low road, we can use the power of our mind to change the firing pattern of our brain and thereby alter our feelings, perceptions, and responses. One of the key practical lessons of modern neuroscience is that the power to direct our attention has within it the power to shape our brain's firing patterns, as well as the power to shape the architecture of the brain itself. As you become more familiar with the parts of the brain I discussed in the first minding the brain segment, you can more easily grasp how the mind uses the firing patterns in these various parts to create itself. It bears repeating that while the physical property of neurons firing is correlated with the subjective experience we call mental activity. No one knows exactly how this actually occurs, but keep this in the front of your mind. Mental activity stimulates brain firing as much as brain firing creates mental activity. When you voluntarily choose to focus your attention, say on remembering how the Golden Gate Bridge looked one foggy day last fall, your mind has just activated the visual areas in the posterior part of your cortex. On the other hand, if you were undergoing brain surgery, the physician might place an electrical probe to stimulate neural firing in that posterior area, and you would also experience a mental image of some sort. The causal arrows between brain and mind point in both directions. Keeping the brain in mind in this way is like knowing how to exercise properly. As we work out, we need to coordinate and balance different muscle groups in order to keep ourselves fit. Similarly, we can focus our minds to build the specific muscle groups of the brain, reinforcing their connections, establishing new circuitry, and linking them together in new and helpful ways. There are no muscles in the brain, of course, but rather differentiate clusters of neurons that form various grouping called nuclei, parts, areas, zones, region, circuits, or a hemisphere. And just as we can intentionally activate our muscles by flexing them, we can flex our circuits by focusing our attention to stimulate the firing in those neural groups. Using Mindsight to focus our attention in a way that integrates these neural circuits can be seen as a form of brain and hygiene. You may you may have heard this before. As neurons fire together, they wire together. But let's unpack this statement piece by piece. When we have an experience, our neurons become activated. Now, what this means is that the long length of the neuron, the axon, has a flow of ions in and out of its encasing membrane that functions like a electrical current. At the far end of the axon, the electrical flow leads to leads to release of chemical neurotransmitter into small synaptic space that joins the firing neuron to the next postsynaptic neuron. This chemical release activates or deactivates the downstream neuron under the right condition. Neural firing can lead to the strengthening of synaptic connections. These conditions include repetition, emotional arousal, novelty, and careful focus of attention. Strengthening synaptic linkage between neurons is how we learn from experience, and one reason that we are so open to learning from experience is that from the earliest days in the womb and continuing into our childhood and adolescence, the basic architecture of the brain is very much a work in progress. During the gestation, the brain takes shape from the bottom up, with the brainstem maturing first by the continue by By the time we are born, the limbic areas are partially developed, but the neurons of the context lack extensive connections to one another. This immaturity, the lack of connections within and among the different regions of the brain, is what gives us what openness to experience that is so critical to learning. A massive proliferation of synapses occurs during the first years of life. These connections are shaped by genes and chance as well as experience, with some aspects of ourselves being less amenable to the influence of experience than other. Our temperament, for example, has a non-experimental experiential.
Non-experiential.
Non-experiential basis. गैर अनुभवात्मक. Oh, sorry, I read it in Hindi. Non-experiential, non-experiential basis. It is determined in a large part by genes and by chance. For instance, we may have a robust approach to novelty and love to explore new things, or we may tend to hang back in response to new situations, needing to warm up before we can overcome our initial shyness. Such neural propensities are set up before birth and then directly shape how we respond to the world and how others respond to us. But from our first days of life, our immature brain is also directly shaped by our interactions within the world, and especially by our relationships. Our experiences stimulate neural firing and sculpt our emerging synaptic connections. And this is how experience changes the structure of the brain itself, and could even end up having an influence on our innate temperament. As we grow, then an intricate weaving together of the genetic chance, the experiential input into the brain and shapes what we call our personality, with all its habits, like dislikes and patterns of response. If you have always had positive experience with dogs and have enjoyed having them in your life, you may feel pleasure and excitement when neighbor's new dog comes bounding toward you. But if you have ever been severely beaten, your neural firing patterns may instead help create a sense of dread and panic, causing your entire body to shrink away from the pooch. Let me check its pronunciation first, then I'll check its meaning.
Pooch.
Pooch. Pooch. Let me check it. A dog. Protrude or cause to protrude from the pooch. If on top of having had a prior bad experience with a dog, you also have a shy temperament, such an encounter may be even more fraught with fear. But whatever your experience and underlying temperament, transformation is possible. Learning to focus your attention in a specific therapeutic ways can help you override that old coupling of fear with dogs. The intentional focus of attention is actually a form of self-directed experience. It stimulates new patterns of neural firing to create a new synaptic linkage. You may be wondering, how can experience, even a mental activity such as directing attention, actually shape the structure of the brain? As we have seen, experience means neural firing. When neurons fire together, the genes in the nuclei, their master control centers, become activated and express themselves. Gene expressions means that certain proteins are produced. These proteins then enable the synaptic linkage to be constructed anew or to be strengthened. Experience also stimulates the production of myelin, the fatty sheet around axon, resulting in as much as a hundredfold increase in the speed of the conduction down the neuron's length. And as we know, experience can also stimulate neural stem cells to differentiate shared into wholly new neurons in the brain. This neurogenesis, along with synapse formation and myelin growth, can take place in response to experience throughout our lives. As discussed before, the capacity of the brain to change is called neuroplasticity. We are now discovering how the careful focus of attention amplifies neuroplasticity by stimulating the release of neurochemicals that enhance the structural growth of synaptic linkage among the activated neurons. An additional piece of the puzzle is now emerging. Researchers have discovered that early experiences can change the long-term regulation of the genetic machinery within the nuclei of neurons through a process called epigenesis. If early experiences are positive, for example, chemical controls over how genes are expressed in specific areas of the brain can alter the regulation of our nervous system in such way as to reinforce the quality of emotional resilience. If early experiences are negative, however, it has been shown that alternation and in the control of genes influencing the stress response may diminish resilience in children and compromise their ability to adjust to stressful events in the future. The changes wrought through epigenesis will continue to be in the science news as part of our exploration of how experience shapes who we are. In some, experience creates the repeated neural firing that can lead to gene expression, protein production, and changes in both the genetic regulation of neurons and the structural connection in the brain. Now, by harnessing the power of awareness, strategically stimulate the brain's firing. Mindsight enables us to voluntarily change a firing pattern that was laid down involuntarily. As you will see throughout this book, when we focus our attention in specific ways, we create a neural firing patterns that permit previously separated areas to become linked and integrated. The synaptic linkage are strengthened. The brain becomes more interconnected and the mind becomes more adaptive. The brain in the body, it's important to remember that activity of what we are calling the brain is not just in our heads. For example, as I mentioned in chapter first, the heart has an extensive network of nerves that process complex information and relay data upward to the brain in the skull. So to do this intestine and all the other major organ system of the body. The dispersion of nerve cells throughout the body begins during our earliest development in the womb. When the cells that form the outer layer of the embryo fold inward to become the origin of our spinal cord. Cluster of these wanderings cells then start to gather at one end of the spinal cord, ultimately to become the skull encased brain. But other neural tissues becomes intricately woven with our musculature, our skin, our heart, our lungs, and our intestine. Some of these neural extensions now form part of the automatic nervous system, which keeps the body working in balance whether we are awake or asleep. Other circuitry form the voluntary portion of the nervous system, which allow us to intentionally move our limbs and control our respiration. The simple connection of sensory nerves from the periphery to our spinal cord and then upward through the various layers of the skull encased brain allows signals from the outer world to reach the cortex, where we can become aware of them. This input comes to us via the five senses that permit us to perceive the outer physical world. The neural networks throughout the interior of the body, including those surrounding the hollow organs such as the intestine and heart, send complex sensory input to the skull-based brain. This data form the foundation for visceral maps that help us have a gut feeling or a heartfelt sense. Such input from the body form a vital source of intuitions and powerfully influences our reasoning and the way we create meaning in our lives. Another bodily input comes from the impact of molecules known as hormones. The body's hormone together with chemicals from the foods and drugs we ingest flow into our bloodstream and directly affect the signals sent along neural routes And as we now know, even our immune system interact with our nervous system. Many of these effect influence the neurotransmitters that operate the synapses. These chemical messengers come in hundreds of varieties, some of which, such as dopamine and serotonin, have become household names thanks in part to drug company advertising. These substances have specific and complex effects on a different region of our nervous system. For example, dopamine is involved in the reward system of the brain. Behaviors and substances can become addictive because they stimulate dopamine release. Serotonin helps to smooth our anxiety, depression, and mood fluctuations. Another chemical messenger is oxytocin, which is released when we feel closed and attached to someone. Throughout this book, I use the general term brain to encompass all of this wonderful complexity of the body proper as it intimately intertwines with its chemical environment and with the portion of neural tissues in the head. Now this is the brain that both shapes and is shaped by our mind. Now this is also the brain that forms one point of the triangle of well-being that is so central to mindsight. By looking at the brain as an embodied system beyond its skull, okay, now we can actually make sense of the intimate dance of the brain, the mind, and our relationships with one another. We can also recruit the power of neuroplasticity to repair damaged connections and create new, more satisfying patterns in our everyday lives. So that's it for today. Like I have read at least 1 hour and 40 minutes. So I'll be finishing this stream for now, and we'll start tomorrow morning. I'll start it early in the morning, like before 9 o'clock, so that I want to read more with you, as well as not only read with you, but I want to explain the things. I want to like talk with you as I am reading, so that I can also get the things as well as you can also get the thing. Besides that, if I'm gonna explain you, then definitely it will help me as well as you. It will grow myself, my communication, my way of explaining. So that I'm thinking. But besides that, there are other videos that I'm going to upload that as well. So yeah, that's all for today's live streaming. Thank you for watching, and let's see you tomorrow in the morning and live streaming. Thank you. Oh my, this mouse is overcharged. Not overcharged, it's running out of charge. I don't know what it is, but it is the thing. Oh man, what happened? I have to stop my live streaming. Where is my live streaming?